Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 196 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm not with Ayaz Sumra this week. He has gone missing. I'm not quite sure where he is. All I do know is that he's not in the country. That is all I know. He's not in the UK. I don't know when he's going to be back. I don't know where he's gone. I don't know when he went. I just know he's not in the UK. I couldn't reach him. This is what he does periodically. If you've been listening for a long time, he just disappears. He just gets on a plane and he just goes. He just goes somewhere and he just returns back and he just pops up and goes, hey, I'm back. I don't know where he's gone. If you do know, let me know, because it's completely a mystery for me. We must crack on with the show. We don't pass up a week without doing a show for you. I will just start with a question, actually. To win a BoxHard Podcast t-shirt, the new t-shirts are very different from the old ones. The old ones were quite plain, but also quite smart for a boxing t-shirt. You know, a lot of people liked those ones. But the new ones have obviously got the big logo on the front. They've got on the back BoxHard Podcast, all that. So they're pretty flashy. They're pretty nice. I really like them. I've just ordered a whole new batch in, so we've got some to give away. Any size, I think, from small to double XL. So there is a few competitions coming up. But let's start with this competition here. And this is a question that I want people to find pretty difficult. We don't want to be giving the t-shirts away too easily. So I'm going to give you this question here. The first person to come in with the answer gets the t-shirt in whichever size they want. The question is, which current boxing world champion right now, he's a reigning world champion right now, which current boxing world champion is trained by a guy, and that guy fought in his pro career, fought Butterbean? That is the question. Let me make that a little bit more simple. Which world champion right now, their trainer fought Butterbean when they were pro boxing themselves? That's the question. So good luck with that one there. Yeah, let's start with the review part of the show. I've been rambling on a little bit there. Let's start here with, this was last Thursday, the 11th of July. It was obviously the Matchroom Italy card in Lazio in the Stadio Nicola Pietrangeli, I think it said. Apparently it was named after a tennis player or something. I'm not big on the tennis, so forgive me if I'm making a hash of that name there. I think it was actually on a tennis court, but they'd brought a boxing ring to it. It was a pretty, well, I mean, the venue, I don't know. It didn't look that great on TV. Didn't really look that big. But anyway, they are just still getting started out there in the Matchroom Italy environment. On the bill, there was supposed to be Fabio Turchi against Tommy McCarthy. That didn't happen. Turchi pulled out late notice, not quite sure why. In stepped Francesco Cataldo, 7-5. He actually was stopped after 2 rounds. He didn't want to come out for round 3, so a retirement win there for Tommy McCarthy, now 14-2. There was a guy on the bill that has now moved to 38-0 with 1 draw. But these Italians just love things with P. They love pastas, pizzas, and padded records. That's what they love out there. Topping the bill, though, the more important fight, Emanuele Blandamora, former opponent of Billy Joe Saunders, 29-3 going into the fight. It was for the vacant WBC International Silver Middleweight title. He took on Marcus Morrison, our very own. Obviously, Morrison, trained by Joe Gallagher, 20-3 going in. Not very impressive. He's lost a couple of fights against guys he really shouldn't have lost to if he was going to go places. So a lot of people writ him off before this fight. He was actually losing the fight, I believe, on all 3 judges' scorecards. Even the commentary team said he was losing that fight, Marcus Morrison. And he came from behind to score a 9th round knockout in a scheduled 10. So an absolutely huge win for him. That's the best win of his career. And, you know, he was brought in to that fight to lose to the Italian, to get a British name on his resume, and it's all gone horribly wrong for Blandamora, who's not a fantastic fighter, but he kind of hangs around that fringe European level. So it's the biggest win by far of Morrison's career. It doesn't even come close to the other wins. This is on another level. So I'm really pleased for him, because now he'll probably get a top 15 ranking with a WBC, funny enough. And you know, credit to him. We like to see the Brits do well. Credit to him. Moving out now to the Edion Arena in Osaka, Japan. We've got over here Rob Brandt, 25-1. It was a rematch against Ryota Murata, the 2012 gold medalist, 14-2 going in, obviously coming off that loss to Brandt in the first fight, where Brandt was able to outpoint Murata quite comfortably, to be honest. I think that fight was in America, so this one here was in Japan. Rob Brandt had to travel. I think there was also a rule, perhaps, where drug testing was in play for this one, but it wasn't for the last one, and the result dramatically changed the other way around. It was a TKO in the second round for Murata, so he regains his world title from Brandt, and the fight couldn't have gone much different from the first one. So a lot of people now saying, "Oh, is Brandt on the juice?" I wouldn't want to throw those accusations out there, but, you know, it's just a thing. It's just a fact that I'm bringing up. It's a little bit of information. That is the case. This time around there was drug testing and the result completely changed, so I'm not saying anything, but some people are. But yeah, I like Rob Brandt, so, you know, I think there's a rematch clause actually for him as well, so we may see the third fight between them, and it's all back-to-back rematches, so yeah, I don't mind seeing that one there. But Ryota Murata, for now, the new WBA World Middleweight Champion. I think that's the second reign, or is it the third reign? I'm confused. He keeps winning it, and then losing it, and then having a rematch and winning it back, so quite confusing. Also on that bill, though, Ken Shiro moved to 16-0. It was a defense of his WBC World Light Flyweight title against Jonathan Takonin, 28-3 with one draw. It was a fourth round TKO for Shiro, so like I say, he's now 16-0. Moving out now to the King Abdullah Sports City in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Obviously, this card happened on the Friday night, wasn't it? It was on the Friday night. What a bizarre card this was. I mean, we said it last week. Firstly, Michael Hennessy Jr., the son of Mick Hennessy, he was 1-0 going in. He actually scored well, I'm not sure you'd say scored. He got served up a majority draw over 4 rounds against a guy who was making his debut, Farhad Hazratzadeh. I don't think we'll see a rematch between those two, to be honest. I don't know if you'll be able to get Farhad Hazratzadeh to leave Jeddah. It was his first fight, though. Like I say, I'd probably doubt he had tons of amateur experience. I think Mick Hennessy Jr. actually did have quite a good amateur career, so a big blip there for him. Perhaps a rematch can happen if they decide to go back out there again, like we're being led to believe. Perhaps Khan will go back out there, so maybe they can get the rematch on, because he needs to right that wrong there. Michael Hennessy Jr., he looked pretty good in his debut, but yeah, to get a draw in just your second fight, not a good start there at all. But I didn't see the fight, to be honest, so I don't know if he was lucky to get the draw. He should have lost, he should have won. It was a bad card. It was in favour of the home fighter, not the promoter's fighter. I don't know. Also on the bill, we saw Hughie Fury move to 23-2. It was a TKO in the 7th round against former WBC heavyweight world champion Samuel Peter, now 38-8. Very bizarre fight. I mean, we're never going to forget how bizarre this fight is. Hughie Fury, I expected to probably get Peter out of there within about 2 rounds, 3 tops. Obviously, the hashtag was Fury Peter, but I really liked the hashtag the other way around, Peter Fury. It would have been quite confusing. Thankfully, things weren't confusing in the fight. It was one-sided. The tactics were a little bit confusing from Sam Peter. He seemed to just, I don't know, if he had a bet on himself to get disqualified or something. He was trying to get disqualified. He was hitting after the break. He was hitting Hughie Fury in the nuts. He was punching in the back of the head. He really showed some dirty tactics. And early on, I felt like Hughie Fury was giving him way too much respect. It's like he didn't want to get hit. He was trying to stay out of the way of the power shots. I mean, I know that Samuel Peter can punch and stuff like that, but he was just giving him too much respect, really, Hughie. And, you know, he made it a little bit ugly, to be honest, because he didn't want to trade at all. He was just kind of boxing and moving all the time, and you've got to say, because of this, because it went to the 7th round, it wasn't impressive. A lot of people are looking at that now saying, boy, oh boy, Dubois beats him, Joyce beats him, Dave Allen beats him, I've even seen. So, yeah, it is what it is. Hughie Fury, not that impressive, but we are big fans of Hughie Fury. He's a lovely guy. I really do love Hughie Fury. I'll tell you a quick story about Hughie Fury. One time back in the day, it was on the undercard of Tyson Fury, Derek Chisora 2, and Eddie Chambers, friend of the show, good friend of mine, one of my best friends in the world actually. He was fighting on the undercard, and I walked him to the ring. I was in the dressing room and stuff like that. And just before I walked into the ring, they were all in the dressing room, and I didn't really want to go in there. I didn't want to, start distracting him and stuff. I'm not part of his training team. I'm just his friend. And I was hanging outside the door of the changing room. So it's on a big long corridor. I'm standing outside the door, and they're all inside, and then Hughie Fury hadn't yet arrived. So I think he's walking down the corridor about 15 minutes before the fight, something like that. And he sees me outside the door, and he says to me, "Joey, what are you doing outside?" And I said, I don't want to go in there and, get in the way and stuff like that. And he goes, "Shut up." And he just opened the door and literally flung me in, like he's a cool guy, man. I love Hughie Fury for that. And I was there. I got to see everything happening, and it is really insightful when you see the things that go into a pro fight, especially in the heavyweight division, right before you're going to walk, the things that's being said and stuff like that. It's very insightful. But yeah, also on the bill, Prince Patel, 19-1 with one draw. He managed to lose his very carefully padded record. Actually, it was for the vacant IBO World Bantamweight title. In the other corner, Michel Banquez, now 19-1. I did say Banquez had fought a bunch of nobodies, just like Patel had, and they both had similar records. They both had boxed really bad opponents, but Banquez really didn't let Prince Patel really get into the fight. Prince Patel showed some decent head movement, some decent defense when he wanted to, but he did nothing offensively, and he pretty much lost every single round. Banquez didn't slow down at all. The body shots that he threw in were quite lethal on Patel. I actually give Patel credit because he showed that he's really got some heart, and he showed some real grit and toughness that we wasn't sure he had. So, I think he's improved since he boxed over in the UK last, but obviously he wasn't good enough, and, it went the way that a lot of people thought it would go. Also on the bill, Amir Khan, now 34-5 in his 39th pro contest. It was for the vacant WBC International Welterweight title. I think they binned off this Pearl title because of all the criticism that they were getting about it. But Billy Dib, now 45-6. It was his 51st fight. He was TKO'd in the 4th round. Like I say, we do love Billy Dib. He's a great guy. He's got a very emotional story and all the rest of it. He was down in the 2nd round. He kind of just got caught coming in. He was trying to throw a left hook of his own, and he got caught by Khan's left hook. Khan obviously had the more leverage on it. He threw it, from further away, more power on it, and Billy Dib just walked into it really. Billy Dib did take his time. He got back up. He seemed okay when he got back up actually, and I won't say it was competitive, but he didn't disgrace himself, Billy Dib. And I spoke to him the following day, and it's not like he took a beating or anything. Do you know what I mean? So, it was kind of like an easy kind of payday for him, really. The towel came in the 4th round when he got, I think he got dropped again. Again, it wasn't a heavy knockdown. He didn't take a beating, and, he's probably going to retire, I'd imagine, straight after that. I don't see the point in continuing. He's not going to get paid like that again. He's had quite the story, though, like I say. Leaving that one there, moving out now to the Olympia in Liverpool, Merseyside, United Kingdom. This one over here, an MTK Global show. I didn't watch any of it, so I'm just going to quickly fly through this with the results. Sammy Maxwell now 12-0, a knockout in the 2nd round against Oscar Amador. Amador was also down in the 1st. Natasha Jonas picked up a TKO in the 4th round against Beck Connolly, who's now 2-6, but Natasha is now 8-1. Also, Terry Flanagan, former WBO world champion, now 34-2, a knockout in the 5th round against Jonas Segu. Segu was also down in the 1st. Jazza Dickens, 27-3 now. It was a unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Nathaniel May, 21-2 now. It was for the vacant IBF European Featherweight title. May was down once in the 4th and once in the 5th, but like I say, he bravely got back up, he continued, and he lasted the full 10, so credit to him. Jazza Dickens, a friend of the show though, so I'm pleased for him. And also, Martin Murray picked up win number 38. It was It was a points win over 10 rounds. He's got the 5 losses, I should mention, and the 1 draw. And it was against Rui Pavanito, who's now 10-9 with 1 draw. He's a lot better than his record suggests. He's a tough guy. I remember he boxed Craig Richards on the Buglioni-Ricky Summers undercard a couple years back. And we were talking about this fight because I went to Nando's with Craig on Monday. And we were discussing, like I said, I bet you didn't realise that your guy, the Portuguese guy, Pavanito, fought Martin Murray on the weekend, and he didn't know. And we were talking about that. He was a much better fighter than he looked on paper, and he gave Craig a tough fight that night. Moving out now to the Emerald Queen Casino, a venue that I want to see boxing at a lot more. One fight really to mention over here, friend of the show, Eric Hunter, 21-4. Obviously, he's the guy that boxed Lee Selby for Lee Selby's world title. That was on the AJ Martin undercard all those years back. He hasn't boxed since then. Well, he has now. He's been out the ring, like I say, for 3 years and 4 months, and he returned against German Meraz. And Meraz actually suffered a cut from an accidental headbutt, but thankfully for Eric Hunter, it went down as a technical decision rather than a no contest, because knowing his luck, it'd go down as a no contest. He's had a few disqualifications and stuff like that. He's always involved in controversial fights. Even that Lee Selby fight was a bit weird. He had points took off, he dropped Selby. There's always drama with Eric Hunter, but it's good to see him back in the ring. Like I say, a real good talent, but he's one of those guys that you feel could end up being a waste of talent. He's now 32 years of age, and like I say, the first fight there in 3 years and 3 months. It's 3 years and 3 months since that Selby fight. He won every round, and then he got it, a technical decision. And German Meraz had 62 wins, 56 losses. He's one of those guys, well seasoned. But yeah, good to see Eric Hunter back. Very good fighter. Also, we should move over now to... Which card we're going to go to? We're going to go to France here at the Azor Arena. 2 Olympians, 2 medalists actually. Salaman Sissoko, I think he was a bronze medalist, 9-0. Well, he's actually now 10-0. It was a 5th round KO against Jose Paz, who's now 23-10 with 1 draw. And more importantly, I suppose, Tony Yoka now 6-0, a knockout in the 3rd round against Alexander Dimitrenko, 41-6. Very much past his best, to be honest with you there. And moving out now to the O2 Arena in Greenwich, London, United Kingdom. Let's start here with the undercard, I think. We're going to start here with Willie Hutchinson, friend of the show, now 9-0. It was a points win over 6 against Josip Perkovic. I feel like I've said his name so many times, Perkovic. He's certainly a name I've said a few times. He's only had like 15 fights, or now 16. So he must just be boxing in Britain quite often. 5-10 now with 1 draw, Perkovic. Also on the bill, Hamza Shiraz. He got another 1st round TKO. He had his man down prior to the stoppage. His man was Scott James, now 4-6 with 1 draw. Hamza Shiraz, a real good fighter, 9-0. Also on the bill, Sonny Edwards, 12-0 now. It was a unanimous decision over 10 rounds for the vacant IBF International Super Flyweight title against Hiram Gallardo, who's now 12-3 with 2 draws. Gallardo was down in the 2nd round. It was a bit of a... well, it was a bit of a lucky, I don't want to say lucky, fortunate knockdown is the right thing to say. I don't think it should have been a knockdown, but it didn't really matter, to be honest. When the referee scored it, I thought it's not going to make any difference to the scorecards. It's not like it's going to be a close fight. If he knocks him out, he knocks him out. Do you know what I mean? Like, Sonny Edwards is such a good fighter. I knew it wasn't going to be a close fight. So having that round of 10-8 made absolutely no difference at the time at all. Also on the bill, Archie Sharp. We will be speaking to him later on in the show. He moved to 16-0. It was a defence of his WBO European Super-Featherweight title against Jordan McCorry, 18-6 now with 1 draw. McCorry, he was down in the 3rd round. Obviously, he's boxed the likes of Ronnie Clark and Sam Bowen, so it's a bit of a kind of measuring stick there. kind of fight for Archie Sharp. It was a brilliant left hook to the body, by the way, that put McCorry down, and that is arguably Archie Sharp's money shot. That left hook to the body is such a brilliant shot. He's had a few guys down with that same shot, and credit, like I say, to McCorry for getting up and surviving the distance, actually. Also on the bill, we got to see Liam Williams move to 21-2 with one draw. It was a knockout in the second round against Karim Achor, who's now 27-6 with 3 draws. Achor was down twice in that second round, and it was for the vacant WBC silver middleweight title. Liam Williams, I have to say this, that was the statement of the night, possibly even the weekend. I mean, to knock this guy out in 2 rounds is such a statement. Achor had never been stopped before. He'd been the distance with the likes of David Lemieux. He couldn't put him away. I don't even think he knocked him down, actually, Lemieux. And Lemieux came in overweight. It was for a couple of regional belts and stuff like that, and he came in overweight, so he probably didn't kill himself or anything to, he didn't deplete himself, I should say, to try and make the weight either, Lemieux. So you'd probably have to say, he was a little bit more comfortable than what we usually see him at, and he wasn't able to put Achor down, certainly not get him out of there. He'd also been the distance with Martin Murray, Achor, that was back in 2012. So yeah, he's boxed with a few decent guys, and no one's ever been able to get him out of there, so credit there to Liam Williams. He just looks phenomenal, and I said it early on, but I believe, is a guy that if he doesn't win a world title, then he will be a little bit of a waste of potential, to be honest, because I think he's so good. He's a destined world champion, and I've spoke to a few people in Wales, and they say he's got the biggest fan base of any Welsh fighter, bigger than Cordina, bigger than Selby or either of the Selby brothers. He's the guy, so it'd be good to see him perhaps headlines in Wales or something like that if Frank Warren wants to go over there. He's got a brilliant future, Liam Williams. I really believe in him. Also on the bill, Daniel Dubois, now 12-0. It was a KO in the 5th round against Nathan Gorman. Nathan Gorman now 16-1. It was for the vacant British heavyweight title. Gorman was knocked down in the 3rd round, and he was knocked out in the 5th. Again, I went with Dubois to win this one. I spoke to a few people in the build-up to the fight, on fight week, stuff like that, and I was surprised how many people were actually picking Gorman to win. And some people were saying by stoppage, some people were saying on points. I all along thought that Dubois was going to just be too big and too strong for him, and it turned out to be that way. He completely dominated Daniel Dubois, and he didn't give away a second, really, in any of the rounds. He was in charge for the whole thing. When Gorman got put down, he got back up. Obviously, this was in the 3rd round. He got back up and he fought fire with fire. And he didn't really land with anything, but he fought like a complete man possessed. And Daniel Dubois actually kind of thought, whoa, I'm not going to get involved with that. And I think he probably learnt from that Richard Lartey fight, and he thought, I'm not going to trade recklessly here like I have done before, because Gorman in that stage of the fight was just throwing haymakers. And thankfully, he calmed himself down. He got back to his boxing a little bit. Didn't throw too many jabs though. That's his problem. And when he come out in that 5th round, he got caught again too many times clean, and the referee did the right thing there. So yeah, good win there for Dubois, but it's one I saw coming, so I gained a point there on the prediction league. The finishing punch from Dubois, actually, I remember now, it was a lovely double jab right hand finish, and the referee, like I say, did probably do the right thing. Like I say, quite a one-sided fight there. Talking of the prediction league we shall visit right now. I went with a Khan knockout. So did you guys. So did Ayaz. So that's a point for each of us there. I went with Dubois by knockout. Ayaz went with Dubois points, and you, the listeners, went with Gorman points. So 1 point for me there. And then we all went with Joyce to win by knockout. He had the 100% knockout ratio going into the fight, but it was taken away by Bryant B.Y. Jennings, the UK killer, the so-called UK killer. Joe Joyce now 10-0. It was a unanimous decision over 12 rounds against Bryant Jennings. Bryant Jennings now 24-4. To be completely honest, I was a bit bored during that fight there. There was a tricky first round for Joe Joyce in the beginning. Jennings, he seemed to start quite well. He hit Joe with a body shot that I think hurt him quite bad. But then as the rounds went on, it was just repetitive. It was Joe Joyce, Joe Joyce, Joe Joyce, in my opinion. I know a lot of Americans had it quite close. I didn't see it a close fight. We knew that Jennings was a tough guy. We didn't think he'd go the distance, but he did. So credit to him for becoming the only guy to take Joyce the distance, and credit to Joyce for not really slowing down with his punch output, to be honest. He really is a juggernaut. He kept up the punch volume, and perhaps it slowed a little bit, but it wasn't, he didn't dramatically slow down. He was still throwing shots. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but he's going to be a real hard style to beat, and I think he's shown quite a good chin. So if you can't put him away, he's going to be a hard guy to outbox. He's a little bit like Amir Khan in the sense, in the sense that Amir Khan's hard to outbox because he throws a million shots, so you've got to knock him out, and that's why Amir Khan doesn't really lose on points. He shouldn't have lost to Lamont Peterson. That's the only fight he lost on points, so he shouldn't have lost that fight. It was only because he had 2 points took off for joke reasons, which is when he pushed Lamont, which is just a joke. But anyway, is that every fight on the card there? I think it probably is. We've done Joyce. Yep, that is every fight on the card, yes. Moving out now to the Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California, USA. A couple fights to mention over here. The big upset, Diego De La Hoya, he was 21-0. He was knocked out in the 6th round against Ronnie Rios, the underdog for sure. 31-3 now, Rios. It was for the NABF Super Bantamweight title and the vacant WBA Gold Super Bantamweight title. Again, another belt that we don't know too much about. How much value does it hold? I don't know. De La Hoya was down in that 6th round and he couldn't continue, so a big upset there for Ronnie Rios. Credit to him. And also topping the bill, Ray Vargas, 34-0 now. It was a defense of his WBC World Super Bantamweight title against Tomoki Kameda. Kameda had only been beaten by Jamie McDonnell in his 2 defeats. He'd only lost to one man. Well, now Ray Vargas has joined that very short list of people that's beat him, and obviously Ray Vargas once upon a time beat Gavin McDonnell. So a good win for Vargas. He extends his fantastic win streak, really. 12-round unanimous decision. Kameda actually had 1 point deducted for hitting on the break in round 12. Kameda now 36-3. Moving out now to the Minneapolis Armory in Minnesota, USA. A couple fights actually to mention. Firstly, the Russell brothers. Let's start with Gary Antoine Russell, now 10-0. It was a knockout in the 3rd round against Larry Ventus, who's now 9-14 with 1 draw. Ventus was down 3 times in that fight. That guy there, Gary Antoine Russell, he's the big puncher, I think, of the brothers. He seems to have some real dynamite in his fists. Gary Antonio Russell picked up a unanimous decision over 10 rounds. He's now 15-0. It was against Francisco Pedrosa, now 13-9 with 2 draws. Charles Martin, the former IBF heavyweight world champion, we mentioned him earlier on in the show, 27-2 with 1 draw now. It was a 4th round TKO against Daniel Martz, who's now 18-7 with 1 draw. Martz was down twice in the 4th round. That was where the TKO came. Also on the bill, Jamal James picked up a unanimous decision win over 10 rounds against Antonio DeMarco, who's now 33-8 with 1 draw. Way past his best now, DeMarco, you'd feel. Jamal James 26-1, and we will be speaking to him later on. Gerald Washington, 20 wins now with 3 losses and 1 draw. It was a knockout in the 8th round against Robert Helenius. It was a real 50-50 kind of fight. Some people saying that Helenius was probably winning it, and Gerald Washington managed to get the knockout in the 8th round of a scheduled 10. So credit to Washington for still having the fitness, I suppose, to find a big shot like that late on in a fight. Robert Helenius 28-3. So a big win for Washington, arguably the biggest win of his career in the most important period of his career. He really needed to win, in my opinion. It's kind of a must-win fight for him there. And the final card at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, USA. 3 fights to mention. Firstly, Vijender Singh, he returned to action. He's been out the ring, I think, for about 2 years or something like that. He come back with a 4th round TKO against Mike Snyder, who's now 13-6 with 3 draws. Vijender Singh 11-0. Shakur Stevenson, friend of the show, now 12-0. It was for the WBO NABO featherweight title. He took on Alberto Guevara. Obviously, that was I don't want to say last-minute opponent change. Well, I suppose it kind of was. He only had a couple of weeks, didn't he, Guevara? He only went 3 rounds. He got KO'd there. Guevara now 20 27-5. I will just say about Guevara, this is another statement for Shakur Stevenson. I've said before, I do want to see him stepped up because he wants these world title fights and we are not yet seeing them, or really anyone that close to that level. But Guevara is a guy who's usually quite durable. I mean, you know, he got in there with Hugo Ruiz, and he can really punch. He didn't get him out of there. He went the distance, Hugo Ruiz, with Guevara, and also Guevara obviously lost to Emmanuel Rodriguez, very good fighter. He didn't get him out of there. He took on Yamanaka. Yamanaka got him out in 9 rounds. Fair enough. Obviously, Yamanaka a fantastic fighter, and he went the distance with Leo Santa Cruz. So for young Shakur Stevenson to get him out in 3 rounds. That is a mega statement. It just goes to show he is surely going to be a world champion unless something goes incredibly wrong. And topping the bill, I think it topped the bill. Could have been the chief support, probably was the chief support. But anyway, another friend of the show, Joshua Greer Jr., now 21-1 with 1 draw. It wasn't easy. It was a majority decision over 12 rounds against Nikolai Potapov, who's now 20-2 with 1 draw. Both men had identical records going in, 20-1 with 1 draw. And it was for the vacant WBO, NABO bantamweight title. So Joshua Greer Jr., again, another guy with aspirations of becoming a world champion. He wants to be that. Everyone wants to be that. But he's a good fighter. He's got a lot about him. He wasn't able to get the knockout on this occasion, and it was a little bit too close for comfort. So he needs to kind of just brush up on a few things and come back. He's a smart guy. And he's a guy, actually, by the way, Joshua Greer, that will accept... He's the kind of guy, he'll accept constructive criticism. If people tell him to do this, to do that, he'll listen. He's a guy that listens. He doesn't think he knows best and he knows so much about this and so much about that. He's an open-minded guy, and you need that kind of attitude in boxing, and he's got that, believe you me. That is everything, though, for the review part of the show. Sorry it's dragged on. It's just been incredible. Imagine Ayaz was here to say his little bit as well. It would have probably gone on for over an hour. But that is everything. Just before we wrap up part 1, the last thing to do is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning WBO European Super-Featherweight champion. It is, of course, Mr. Archie Sharp. Archie, welcome back on the show.
Thanks for having me back on, mate.
No problem, Arch, no problem. So we last spoke back in May, not too long ago. It was just after your win over Sergio Gonzalez. Obviously, that fight was a measuring stick kind of fight because he went the distance with Woodstock. You managed to get him out of there in 2. And then, of course, your last fight, which happened on Saturday, was another measuring stick kind of fight in the eyes of the public. And I'll explain why in just a second. But firstly, Arch, how did you assess your performance Saturday night?
Yeah, do you know what? I thought the performance went well. It was nice to be back into championship sort of fights. Unfortunately, my hands swelled up after a couple of rounds, but that was just another little obstacle that we just had to get through. And like I say, I thought it was a good performance in the end.
And as I say, it was a measuring stick kind of fight in the eye of the fans, because your opponent, Jordan McCorry, had fought 2 other top British fighters in Ronnie Clark and perhaps more importantly, Sam Bowen, the reigning British champion. They were both able to stop him, Arch. You were able to put him down, obviously, in the 3rd round, but you were unable to finish him. He took you the 10. From your own point of view, Arch, were you disappointed to not get him out of there at all?
No, because the thing is, if you watch the Sam Bowen fight, he won a lot of rounds against Sam Bowen before the stoppage. So that wasn't, for me, it was just more about getting through, winning every single round clearly. And I reckon I haven't watched the whole fight back. From what everyone's saying is at least had me winning by 7 to maybe 8 rounds of the fight. So in that way, I think I've done a better job than the others. I know they stopped him, but and also to give the man his due, even Jordan McCorry said to me in the ring there that night, he said, "Archie, you hit a lot harder than Sam Bowen." He said, "I tell you what it was." He said, "When he boxed Sam Bowen, it was at very late notice." He said, "I hardly trained for the fight." He said, "They give it to me at late notice. I took the fight." He said, "After the Sam Bowen fight, he said, I knew Frank was having a show at the O2 on this date." He said, "So I made sure I was in the gym ever since that Sam Bowen fight." So I fought a stronger and fitter Jordan McCorry that night than what he boxed in Leicester.
Wow. Well, that is interesting. Obviously, the shot that you put him down with, Arch, was a left hook to the body. You've managed to put a few people down with that same exact shot. It really is one of your best offensive weapons. Of all your knockdowns, if you've been keeping tab, have most of them come from body shots, Arch?
Yeah, majority of them. Yeah, majority of them. Overall, to be fair, with you, most of my shots have been from the body shot. And to be honest with you, I did look for it a couple more times after the fight, but like I say, my hands were playing up a little bit that night, and I caught an elbow once or twice, and then that kind of put me off putting the left hook in to the body again.
Yeah, no, like you say, you landed with it a few times. The hands were hurting, but I mean, credit, like I say, to McCorry as well. He really did tough it out. What is the plan, Archie, going forward now? Do you know when you're next fighting at all? Do you know who it may be against at all at this stage? Still, obviously, really early.
Do you know what? It's a bit early, and to tell you the truth, I'm not too sure what my plans are. I've been back into the gym today, so I had Sunday and Monday off, and I got myself back in the gym today, just doing light work. But I can't do no punching at the minute because of my hands. But once I'm all sorted there, then yeah, I look to get back into the ring as soon as possible, really.
And also, since we last spoke, Arch, the WBO world title has changed hands. It's now with Jamel Herring. You're ranked, obviously, in the top 10 with the WBO. Is that the fight that you want more than any other fight? Because, obviously, there's that question you've got to ask yourself, Arch, like, you know, you haven't boxed all of the names in Britain. There's still big fights for you domestically. You don't really want to make the jump too early if you're not ready for it. Or there's other people that like to say, no, I want to just go for it, and, you know, the British level kind of scene is there for me, you know, should I not be successful? What's your thoughts on the whole thing? What do you want?
Well, that's the thing. People can say, I'm not ready. To tell you the truth, so like I say, in October I boxed, obviously, Leon Woodstock, who was the reigning champion, and I defended against Jordan McCorry, who I think he beats Leon Woodstock, and I think, listen, if Sam Bowen was 10% less that night, then Jordan McCorry would have won. And like you say, Jordan McCorry has sworn that it was a late notice to jump in against Sam Bowen. So he was definitely not running on 100%. So it'll be interesting to see how that fight goes if they ever had the rematch, because you could be looking at a different outcome there. But so yeah, people could say, maybe Archie Sharp's not ready for like the likes of Jamel Herring, but styles make fights. Like I say, Leon Woodstock and Jordan McCorry are both come forward fighters. They're strong, they're tough, they come forward. Not saying Jamel Herring's not tough, but he's a very good technician. Lamont Roach Jr., a very good technician. At that world stage, there's a lot of good technicians, and that is what I am, a very, very good technician. So chuck me in the world mix, and I will show a lot of supporters and fans and all the boxing people how good Archie Sharp is. At the end of the day, all the people who come forward, Russia fighters, they can just make it look a bit messy and tied up. But when you get two very good technicians together, you'll see a very good boxing match. And I believe that I am there at that level regarding, like I say, being a top technician in the sport.
Yeah, very well said. And, you know, again, should that fight not happen in the near future, the two men that I'm guessing most people are talking about, you know, domestically with yourself, obviously Zelfa Barrett getting a great win against Leon Woodstock the other week, and Sam Bowen, I think he's tied up for the minute with Anthony Cacace. I believe that fight's supposed to happen at some point in the near future. What's your take on that fight, by the way?
Yeah, of course. Do you know what? I see his manager. His manager's a bit of a fool, to be honest with you. But I see him tonight, and he wants to kiss ass and try and be all friendly and that. And then after I get out the ring, he gets on the social media like a keyboard warrior and has a lot to say, thinking Sam Bowen will beat me on 70%. He'd be too strong. But like I say, your man Jordan McCorry just got out the ring, who has boxed myself and has boxed Sam Bowen. He's got no reason to lie, and his words were like a punch, and I'm stronger than Sam Bowen. Listen, like I said, I'm not making no excuses because of my hands, but my hands made me box a different fight due to my hands being in pain. So yeah, so the Sam Bowen fight, listen, is a fight that we're definitely interested. Whether it happen this year or early next year, I'm not too sure, because like you say, he's tied up with Cacace. I think Sam Bowen is a very good champion. He's got a very good pedigree. He beat the likes of Joe Cordina and that back in the day in the amateur game. He's a very good kid. But like I say, styles make fights, and Sam Bowen is a pressure forward fighter, and that suits me all day long. The more he comes, the more I'm allowed. That allows me to hit him. But to be honest with you, what does interest me a lot more, obviously, is the WBO world title. And I want to be able to have the opportunity, like I said, I've had 2 tough fights with 2 fighters who come forward. I like to have the opportunity to jump in the ring with a very good technician and high-level opponent like your Jamel Herrings and things like that, even like the likes of Tevin Farmer, because I will be able to show a completely different side and how good my ability really is.
I want to get your take there on, if that fight does happen between Cacace and Bowen. How do you see that one playing out, Arch?
Do you know what? Cacace has got all the tools to beat Sam Bowen. If you remember rightly, obviously, I know Martin will beat him on unanimous decision, but he still give Martin Ward a half fight, and I'm telling you now, Martin Ward is a very good kid. I've sparred Martin Ward plenty of times, done a lot of rounds with Martin Ward, and he's a very, very good kid. But the only thing with Cacace, what doesn't do him the favours, is that he's not very active. He hasn't been very active at the minute, so I think that's the only downside to that fight. So yeah, but listen, it'll be a good fight. Be interesting to see what happens. And like I say, the winner of that, I'd like to have the winner of that at some point late this year, early next year.
And coming down to the last couple of questions, Arch, this weekend, a brilliant fight. It's going to be on pay-per-view. Not sure you're going to be tuning in that late at night / early morning, but I think it's about $12.99, something like that, so it's not the usual £20. But anyway, Pacquiao versus Thurman being the main event over there in the States. How do you see that one unfolding?
Yeah, no, and I look forward to watching that. I don't know what time's it on, at 4 in the morning,
something
is it?
Like
that sort of time frame? I doubt I'll be watching it live. I'll definitely be buying it and recording it and watching it when I wake up. But you know what a great fight that's going to be. The only thing it does me is Pacquiao starting to get over. Do you know what I mean? Is he at his end? I'm not too sure. This fight will kind of tell that, but I can see Manny Pacquiao and him going. I can't see him being a stoppage, to be honest with you. I think he will go to points. I've seen a few clips of Manny Pacquiao, and he's sharp. He throws a lot of punches and a lot of combinations. So I'm just going to go with Manny Pacquiao because of his work rate.
Yeah, I think the smart money is on Pacquiao. Like I say, I'm going with Pacquiao points on that one. And finally, Arch, just before I let you go, any closing words at all to our listeners before we let you go?
Yeah, so like I say, thanks for the support. There's been I've had a lot of messages since Saturday, and I'm very grateful and blessed and humbled to have these messages, and I much appreciate it. And my team as well. Without my team, I won't be in the position where I'm at now. My mind coach, just all my sponsors, friends, family, everyone, my trainer, obviously, Richard Sawyer, manager, and Frank for getting me on these shows and allowing me to be able to get in the ring and do what I do and put a show on for the fans.
Absolutely. Listen, Archie, it is always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for your time. Congrats once again on your win, and we'll catch up sometime soon.
And thanks for having me on, and I much appreciate it. I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news. Even though we're IASless, the news must be discussed. It has to start, I believe, with Kovalev against Anthony Yarde. It's finally been announced. It's set for August 24th in Russia, in Chelyabinsk, I think it is the place. Obviously, Yarde, a big underdog in that one, but we'd all love to see him do the job. We all would. Not really too much else to add to that. I mean, Kovalev is not over the hill for those that say he's over the... I mean, he's not over the hill in terms of he's ready to retire. He's done. No way. He may not be in his prime, but he's still a force to be reckoned with, and he showed that in his last fight. So for anyone that's saying this is an easy fight for Yarde or anything delusional like that, this is Yarde's hardest fight. He's never even boxed like 10% of the fighter that Kovalev is, and Kovalev is expected to knock Yarde out brutally, and that is what most people think will happen. Obviously, we hope that doesn't happen. We love Yarde on this show. Also, other news. We have a fight that's been made with Top Rank, August 17th. Jose Benavidez, obviously the guy that lost his O to Terence Crawford. Not a bad fighter. He's the brother of David Benavidez. He takes on Louis Collazo. Obviously, Collazo is a fighter that's over the hill. I'm expecting Benavidez to probably look good there. But then again, Collazo, he's, that southpaw style. He's crafty. He's got so much experience. He manages to pull one out the bag here and there. So could be interesting, but I'd be shocked if Benavidez doesn't impress and win dominantly, if not get the stoppage. And Emmanuel Navarrete defends his WBO world title. Obviously, the guy that beat Isaac Dogbe in back-to-back fights. He defends against Francisco de Vaca. Again, that one August 17th in California. And there's probably one other piece of news, and that is the fact that the WBC interim world title's on the line now. It's been confirmed for this Saturday's Dillian Whyte versus Oscar Rivas fight. So just adds a little cherry on top of the cake, if you like, there. But that's everything of the news. We're now going to move on to the preview part of the show. We're going to start later today at the Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California, USA. A Golden Boy show, this one. Jason Quigley, friend of the show, 16-0. He's in a 10-rounder against Turiano Johnson, who is 20-2 with one draw. Obviously, Turiano Johnson, a decent fighter. This is another kind of step in the right direction for a guy like Quigley, who's got a lot of promise. Again, he's one of those guys that we think he's good enough to win a world title, but he just isn't really having those fights where, he's fighting fringe world level guys. I think Turiano Johnson's a step in the right direction, but not necessarily fringe world level, I don't think. I know his only losses came to Sergei Derevianchenko in the 12th and final round. He got stopped, and obviously got stopped in the 10th and final round by Curtis Stevens. So he only ever gets stopped in the last round. So if Quigley can make a statement and get him out of there early, then obviously it ticks another box. I just want to see him moved up. I think there's many different guys that, he could beat that are above this kind of level. I know there's no real rush with him, but there kind of is, because he's been a little bit start-stop. Obviously he was based in the US. Now he's based in Sheffield with Dominic Ingalls. So it's been a little bit weird kind of thing. I should mention that in Turiano Johnson's last fight, he got a split draw over 8 rounds against Fernando Castaneda. That's the guy that, Jose Burton knocked out, Frank Buglioni knocked out. So that kind of tells a bit of a story there, unfortunately, for him. Perhaps his best days are behind him now, Johnson. Moving out now to the Magna Centre in Rotherham, Yorkshire, United Kingdom. We should mention over here, friend of the show, Gavin McDonald, 2-time world title challenger. 20-2 with 2 draws. He takes on journeyman Jamie Spate, 15-35. Moving out now stateside to the MGM National Harbour in Oxon Hill, Maryland. A couple fights to mention on this bill, starting with the main event. Friend of the show, Teofimo Lopez, 13-0. He takes on Masayoshi Nakatani, a guy with a record of 18-0, 12 by knockout. I mean, we talked about this guy before. 30 years of age. You look down his record, there's nothing that really stands out to you. He's not boxed anyone really, again, on that level. This is his kind of world title fight. But the interesting thing is he's 5'11.5", and he's a lightweight. So obviously very, very big lightweight. So he's got a bit of an advantage in the height department there. He's got a 71-inch reach. Teofimo Lopez has a 68.5. So little bit of advantage there, but I don't think it's going to play any kind of factor in the fight. I think Teofimo Lopez is just way too good, really, for Nakatani. I think he's going to look good, and he's probably going to, try and make a statement and then try and push for that world title fight with Richard Comey or whatever, see if they can do something there. Also on the bill, I didn't even notice this until just now, Dusty Hernandez Harrison, 32-0 with 1 draw, friend of the show. He was out the ring for over 2.5 years, and then he's come back with 2 back-to-back knockouts, one in March, one in April. Now he's back against Juan de Angel, who's 21-11 with 1 draw. Just having a little look at him, he's been in there with a couple of prospects like Chordao Booker. He went the distance with him. He went the distance with Austin Trout as well. He went the distance with Caleb Plant. He got stopped by Kana Islam. He got stopped by Gilberto Ramirez. He got stopped by Antoine Douglas and Emmanuel Alim. So yeah, a guy that's really been around the block, Juan de Angel. I usually know about these guys that have fought so many contenders like that, so apologies there. I'm disappointed in myself there. And also, heavyweight prospect, undefeated, 15-0, friend of the show, Cassius Chaney, 15-0, like I say. He takes on Joel Caudle, who's 8-2 with 2 draws. Caudle coming off a loss, actually, a majority decision loss over 6 rounds in his last fight. You'd expect Cassius Chaney to impress. Another guy that just seems to be picking up these wins but really flying under the radar. I want to see him in some big fights down the line. Still has lots and lots of potential there. Moving out now to the Palais des Sports in Marseille. Just really one fight I want to mention. Again, it's kind of gone under the radar here. If someone knows why this is happening, then please do let us know at BoxHard Podcast on Twitter. So remember, the WBA belt holder at 154 was Brian Castano, okay? So he won the belt, he defended it once or twice, he took on Erislandy Lara, they fought to a draw. Now, I'm not quite sure what's happened with Castano. He hasn't boxed since the Lara fight, but for whatever reason, he has vacated the title, or they've stripped him or something, and I believe it's on the line for this fight here. Michel Soro of France, 33-2 with 1 draw, and he takes on Magomed Kurbanov, who's 17-0, a Russian. He's only 23 years of age. Not quite sure what either man has really done to be boxing for that title, but more importantly, what's happened with Castano? I really don't understand what's happened there. A good fighter, very good amateur, beat Errol Spence in the amateurs, had loads and loads of promise. You know, he gave Lara a great fight. Lara gave him a great fight, I should say, which he does to many of the top guys at 154. What's happened there? If anyone knows, please let me know. Moving out now to the Brentwood Centre in Brentwood, Essex, United Kingdom. This is a great fight card once again, so I take my hat off to MTK and Lee Eaton there. We're going to start with Harlem Eubank, 8-0. He's in a 6-rounder against Michael Carrero, who's 13-50 with 6 draws. We've got Thomas Patrick Ward, 26-0. I don't know if he's had a fight since his win out in the States where he really impressed on an undercard. Was it the undercard of Spence Garcia or something like that? He was on a big undercard, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, he's a guy that's just a brilliant fighter, loads and loads and loads of potential. But he hasn't been with a big-time promoter, so I'm happy to see him on this bill here because we do need a bit more exposure going his way. He's a quality fighter. He's done things the very, very hard way. So yeah, he fights here, like I say, and he takes on Brian Moreira, who's 10-12 with 1 draw, a guy that's kind of been in and around the British circuit for quite a while. Shaquille Day, 12-0. This is a great fight. He takes on Louis Adolphi, 10-1. Remember, the one loss was actually by disqualification on the Groves Cox undercard, so he's a good fighter, Adolphi, very flashy. That one's for the vacant Southern Area welterweight title. And this fight here, in fact, I'm going to come to it last. Michael McKinson's also on the bill, 16-0, a fighter I really think's, got so much potential, Michael McKinson. I saw him beat, who did he beat? He beat Sammy McNess, and he looked brilliant at the York Hall. He takes on Evgeny Pavko, who's 18-2 with 1 draw. Again, Pavko, I don't know too much about him. I'm not sure he's been over here before. He's got a couple of losses, like I say. He's been stopped in one of them and gone the distance in the other one. McKinson, I really believe in him. This is for the vacant WBO European welterweight title, but the most attractive fight on the card. And they say ladies first, but I've actually gone men first here. I'm leaving the ladies till last, and it's certainly not least here at all because I really like this fight. We've got Chantel Cameron, a lady that I'm a huge fan of. She puts, I think it's her title, the WBC Silver Female Lightweight title. She puts it on the line over 10 2-minute rounds against Anisha Bashir, who's 8-5. Now, the story about Bashir, she lost 5 fights in a row. Her very first fight, she lost her debut. Then she lost again. Ever since losing 5 times in a row, she's managed to get 8 wins in a row, all by knockout, including her last fight. It was actually over here last year because she's from Malawi. She came over and fought for the Commonwealth belt against Sam Smith, who was 8-1, and she knocked Sam Smith out in the first round. So this girl here, Anisha Bashir, she's like 22 years of age or 21 years of age. She can completely bang. So believe me, it really could be quite interesting. I don't want to say she's going to knock Chantel out, because I've heard Chantel spars hard with the guys, and apparently she's got a chin like a brick. But I wouldn't be surprised if she got hurt or buzzed at least once or twice, because she likes to kind of have a bit of a tear up, Chantel Cameron, whereas Katie Taylor likes to box. Chantel Cameron's very, very aggressive, and this will kind of go hand in hand with Bashir's style, because Bashir is an out and out banger now. I don't know what she was like in her first 5 fights, but now she will be so pleased with that, and it will be a war. So that could actually steal the show, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I'm trying to say to you. That's it though for the Brentwood Centre in Essex. Moving now to the O2 Arena in Greenwich, London, United Kingdom. Let's start with the undercard over here. Dave Allen, 17-4 with 2 draws. He takes on David Price, 24-6. David Price, obviously coming off the win over Cash Ali, and that was a bit crazy, that fight, obviously. And Dave Allen coming off probably the best win of his career, certainly the best win of his career against Lucas Brown. So yeah, it could be interesting. It's a 12-round fight, which I think is crazy, because at first I think they were talking about it being like a 10-rounder, something like that, maybe an 8-rounder, and to see it go for 12 rounds, no belt on the line apparently, it doesn't really make much sense as to why it's a 12-rounder. But all of that being said, I don't even see it going the distance. It's one of those fights where both men will be swinging it out. I just got a feeling that, look at Tom Little and look at Dave Allen, I think they're kind of the same sort of level, and I think that David Price didn't really get hit with any, with anything telling from Tom Little. The pressure seemed to not really get to him. He's not fighting a big, scary guy that's talking loads before the fight, anything like that. It's Dave Allen. It's hard to kind of be frightened of Dave Allen because he's such a nice guy and stuff like that. I don't think the occasion's going to get to David Price, is what I'm saying. And I think that is going to probably be the downfall for Dave Allen. So I'm going with quite a shocking prediction. I may be completely wrong, but I've got a feeling that David Price is going to knock Dave Allen out. I think Dave Allen's been in a few too many wars, even though he looked good against Lucas Brown, in terms of getting the win, how he did. He lost the first couple rounds or whatever. I just think David Price, even though he hasn't fulfilled his potential, no way, I think he's a bit too good for Dave Allen, and I just think the size difference is going to be huge. I think David Price is going to box smart. I think he's going to be popping out the jab, and I think there's going to be a few big right hands after those jabs, and I just don't see Dave Allen getting round the guard. But obviously if the fight goes past 5 rounds or something like that, then I think Dave Allen's got the potential to take over, because he's a tough guy. He's tougher than Price, but he just doesn't hit hard, and all the size and advantage and power, all that kind of stuff, the athleticism, probably the experience is all in the favour of David Price. So I think it's a fight for David Price to win and get his name back up there, to be honest. But obviously if Dave Allen wins, then it's a huge win once again, and it's 2 brilliant wins back to back. So I really like the fight, and it is interesting because Dave Allen seems to just somehow keep getting these fights, and he keeps getting me interested. He keeps getting the fans interested. He's had a few decent fights back to back now, Dave Allen. They've all been exciting, and this one could potentially be the best of the lot, so should be interesting. But obviously the loser has to retire, I think, especially if it's David Price. If he loses to Dave Allen by knockout, it's got to be time surely to hang up the gloves. May the best man win. Dave Allen's a friend of the show, so I'd like to see him win, but I just think that David Price is gonna look good here. I really do. I think he's gonna win. The predictions, though, from yourselves and Ayaz. Ayaz has gone with Dave Allen by knockout. You guys have also gone with Dave Allen by knockout, so should be interesting there. It's good to have a bit of a divide. Also on the bill, another great fight. Charlie Duffield, 7-1. This one's for the vacant Southern Area light heavyweight title. He takes on the undefeated 8-0 Dan Aziz. That should be decent there. Another great fight. Richard Riakporn, 9-0. This one's for the WBA Intercontinental Cruiserweight title. In the other corner, identical record, 9-0, Chris Billum Smith. Chris Billum Smith's a guy that everyone's told me he's been having great spars with top fighters. He's obviously with Shane McGuigan. I like the way that those two are working together. Everything seems to be flowing great. It's good to see a Coley, by the way, over there. So you'd imagine a Coley and Billum Smith have had some fantastic spars over the past couple months and stuff. And what better way really to get ready against someone like Riakporhe, who is just kind of flying through at the minute. His brilliant win over Tommy McCarthy, in my eyes, made him a top contender in Britain. I just think that this is going to be one of those fights that could steal the show. This is going to be one of those fights where we can tell a lot about both guys. Chris Billum Smith, he needs the step up. This is his toughest opponent on paper. Tommy McCarthy, arguably, he's up there as well, really. I like what Riakporhe did with him, so you'd probably have to favour Riakporhe, but may the best man win there. Lawrence Okoli himself is on the bill, 12-0. He defends his WBA Continental Cruiserweight title against Mariano Guidino, who's 13-2. Let me have a look at this guy here, because I've never heard of him. He's got the 2 losses, one to Joel Jeko and one to Dario Balmaceda. Oh, gosh. Yeah, this is an easy win for Lawrence Okoli. It's a bit frustrating, all this talk about, being able to fight Lebedev, stuff like that, and then you fight someone like this. There's surely other names that would have been interested in the fight. Surely there's been, there's obviously the fight. Who did he have lined up again for his title defense? And then they pulled out. Jack Massey, that was who it was. And obviously, it's not his fault that fight fell out of bed. But then we heard he'd still be defending his title, his British title on this card here. But obviously, he's not doing that. So a bit of a kind of keep busy fight, really. It's not one I'm looking forward to. And also, his opponent hasn't had much notice. Also on the bill, Derek Chisora, 30-9. He's in a 10-rounder against Artur Spilka, 22-3. That should be quite interesting. Even though I just think Spilka, he didn't look good against Kownacki. Not many people do, by the way. He's winning really nicely lately. I just think that Spilka will end up getting the pressure put on him even pretty early. I can see Chisora getting a knockout win there, to be honest, even though I'd like to see Spilka do it. He's a friend of the show. We haven't had Chisora on before. I'm going with Chisora by knockout. The listeners are going with Chisora by knockout, and Ayaz is going with Chisora on points. Also on the bill we have we've flown through everything almost apart from the main event. Dillian Whyte, 25-1. Like I say, it's for the interim WBC World Heavyweight title against Oscar Rivas, 26-0. I've been talking about Rivas over the years. He was a good amateur. He fought some good people in the amateurs, fought Michael Hunter in the amateurs. Who else did he fight in the amateurs? He fought quite a few guys. He fought like Glazkov, the guy that obviously got forced to retire after his injury against Charles Martin for the IBF title. He's been in there with Kubrat Pulev. He beat him. He fought Camarelli also in the amateurs. So a solid fighter, obviously born in Colombia, based in Canada. It's a weird one. He's an Olympian and stuff like that. Coming off a good win over Bryant Jennings in his last fight. I do want to clear something up. He was ahead on 2 of the scorecards against Jennings, and Jennings was ahead on 1 of the scorecards, because a lot of people were saying that Jennings was up at the time of the stoppage. Completely wrong. The fight before that, he actually took the O of Fabio Maldonado, but he went the distance with him, whereas Michael Hunter did it in about 2 or 3 rounds. But yeah, he's a solid contender, this guy. He's a tough guy. I think he's pretty fit as well for him to get that stoppage over Jennings late on. So I can't see him going anywhere, to be honest with you. I think that Dillian Whyte obviously can't afford to underestimate him. That seems to be a pattern now in Dillian Whyte's fights. He can't underestimate anyone because he's right up there. Whatever he wants to do, a big fight or whatever, he's turned down a few opportunities. I don't know what he really wants to do. He wants to be mandatory or whatever. He wants to fight Wilder, So yeah, all these fights are potential banana skins, so he needs to not slip up here, but it's a tough fight. I reckon Whyte on points. The listeners are going with Whyte by knockout, and Ayaz is going Whyte by knockout. Should be very interesting there. I want to see if Oscar Rivas has ever been down. I've got a feeling that he may have. Let's have a little look here. As a pro, No, he's never been down. So it'd be very interesting here. 26-0 with 18 knockouts is Rivas. Moving out now to the Arena Gardens in Detroit, Michigan. One fight to mention over here. Former world champion, friend of the show. He actually shares the same birthday as me. Cornelius Bundridge, 36-6. The K9. He's back in an 8-rounder. No opponent just yet. Moving out now to the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. Couple fights to mention. Firstly, Efia Jagba, the Nigerian heavyweight that seems to be blowing everyone away. If you haven't seen him fight, you are really, really missing out. He is built like a brick bleep house, and he's got so much potential. Again, he's only 25 years of age. He actually puts his undefeated record on the line, 10-0 against 11-0 Ali Demirezen, who's got 11 wins, like I say, 10 by knockout. He actually went to the Olympics in 2016. He lost, though, to Filip Hrgovic, so no shame in that. He's got a decent amateur pedigree, a Turkish fighter, 29 years of age. Hasn't really got many names on the resume. The only one that really stands out is Michael Sprott. He knocked him out in 5 rounds back in 2017. Our very own Michael Sprott. So, yeah, that's really all I can say. So that should be interesting there between two undefeated prospects. Also on the bill, we get to see Caleb Plant, friend of the show, 18-0. He defends his IBF super middleweight world title against the undefeated Mike Lee, 21-0. I actually do like Mike Lee, but I just think he's in too deep here, really. I think Caleb Plant has got such brilliant boxing skills. I love his judge at distance. He knows when to be aggressive and when to not be aggressive. He's quite a complete fighter, Caleb Plant. He's one of those guys that I feel does the basics really well. Perhaps nothing spectacular, but he does the basics really well, and he's a technician, and I think a lot of people are going to struggle to work him out, really. I'd like to see him take on someone like someone like a Billy Joe Saunders. That's a brilliant fight. It might be quite boring, actually, but it'd be a real chess match. Also on the bill, Sergei Lipinets, friend of the show, 15-1, takes on another friend of the show, John Molina Jr. Like I said to John Molina Jr. a couple weeks back, this one has all the makings of what could be a complete out-and-out war. Lipinets likes to keep coming forward. John Molina Jr. only knows one way to fight, and that's coming forward as well. So that could be an absolutely brilliant fight, potentially I'm even going to say this, potentially a fight of the year style fight, that one, the clash of styles there. The undefeated WBC silver bantamweight champion, Luis Nery, former world champion, 29-0. He takes on Juan Carlos Payano, 21-2. It's another good fight, in my opinion, because Luis Nery's been wiping out most people, really, at bantamweight. I'd like to actually see Nery take on Inoue. I think that would be a good fight. But yeah, he's obviously a very good fighter, Luis Nery. If he's a clean fighter, that's another question mark over him, obviously, after a couple incidents in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. But a good fight against him and Payano. But again, look what Inoue did to Payano. I mean, you can't really better that. Also on the bill, Yordenis Ugas, 23-4, takes on the undefeated friend of the show, Omar Figueroa, 28-0 with one draw. We wish Figueroa all the very best there. That is going to be a very tough fight, by the way. A lot of people think Ugas will win that one. I've spoken to a few people that think Ugas will win that. I hope that they're wrong, because I love Omar Figueroa. And a few things he said in the interview last week, and they're just real things, where he's saying, I was injured, but I had to fight because I needed to, to feed my kids and to put food on the table. It's his only income. And I just really like Omar Figueroa. He's a real character. Also on the bill, it's a star-studded bill. It really, really is. I hope that they show all of this on the box office over here. Obviously, topping the bill, Keith Thurman, 29-0. He takes on Manny Pacquiao, 61-7 with 2 draws. This is going to be Manny's 71st fight. Obviously, it's for Keith Thurman's WBA Super welterweight title. Obviously, Manny Pacquiao's got the regular version, and Thurman has got the Super title, so it's the regular champion versus super champion, and hopefully this is a good opportunity for the WBA to just throw away their regular title. There's no need, just liquidate it. These two guys are getting it on. So yeah, may the best man win in that one. I'm going to go with Pacquiao points. The listeners are going with Pacquiao knockout, which I think is a tall task, and Ayaz is going with Pacquiao points like me. The only problem is, obviously, Manny Pacquiao's only had the one knockout, really, against Matisse in many years, and I just think that against Thurman, and Thurman hasn't really been knocking people out of late either. But I just can't see Thurman being knocked out. You know what I mean? He was in deep water last time out. He came off a huge layoff and had that fight. I can't remember who it was against now, but anyway, Josecito Lopez, that was right. So that was a shaky kind of fight, and based on that, of course, it makes it very interesting because Manny Pacquiao, even though he's 40 years of age, he's been looking really good in his last few fights, in my opinion. But I just think that Manny Pacquiao, with his punch output, it's still there. I think there's going to be a few interesting spells in the fight. I think perhaps Keith Thurman will end up being hurt at one point. I mean, he needs to be a lot sharper, because if he fights like he did in the Lopez fight, then I could actually see Manny Pacquiao putting him away. But I just think that Pacquiao's going to, he's going to be boxing, throwing lots and lots of shots. I think Keith Thurman's going to be trying to draw Pacquiao onto the right hand. Pacquiao's got a good chin, do you know what I mean? Pacquiao doesn't really get out-pointed, if we're being honest. I mean, that hasn't happened for a long, long time. We've got to go back to, I mean, did he really lose the Bradley fight? Not quite sure he did. You've got to really go back to one of the Juan Manuel Marquez fights, you know what I mean? And obviously Marquez was a sublime fighter, especially when he injected himself and started drinking his own urine. I just don't see Keith Thurman pulling off a win. I can't see him stopping Pacquiao. I can't see him outpointing him. I can just see Manny Pacquiao winning the fight. We all agree on that, but of course the listeners, you're going with a knockout. That will be a real statement. It has to be. If Pacquiao gets the knockout over Thurman, then boy, I mean, wow. That's an incredible win. Again, I'm a big Thurman fan. He's got the best 147 wins in recent years. To beat Danny Garcia and take his O. To beat Sean Porter. And these two, he fought them back to back. He beat both of them. Both obviously on points, but he outclassed them both in both of those fights. And they bring very different styles. And I've been a big believer in Keith Thurman. Since he stopped knocking people out, he's really improved on his boxing skills. And I like watching him. He's exciting for me. He really is. And I don't think he'll try and swerve Errol Spence or Terence Crawford. I just think he wanted a couple of fights, and if he wins this, then I'm excited for those fights. I really am, because he can really fight Thurman. A lot of people are really jumped off that bandwagon because of the time out of the ring. I understand that, but nah, man, he's won everything. He's took on some tough guys, and this is his chance to move to 30-0 here. But that's about everything for the preview part of the show. That is about everything. So just before we wrap up part 2, of course, the last thing to do is to welcome our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former heavyweight world title challenger himself. It is, of course, Mr. Gerald Washington. Gerald, welcome back on the show.
Thank you.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Gerald. So we last spoke back in January. It was just before the Adam Kownacki fight. I think at the time we both agreed that obviously in that fight you'd need to keep it long. You'd need to frustrate him behind a solid jab, which is what you really can do when you want to. The judge of distance obviously would play a crucial part in the fight, but unfortunately you were unable to really get going. I know that this is kind of a thing of the past now. You're just coming off a win, but just give me a word on that, Gerald, seeing as we haven't spoken since then.
Yeah, the game plan that we worked on was actually to fight them inside. We saw that they had trouble on the inside with Charles Martin, and we decided to go with an inside approach, or a closer approach. But it was something that wasn't very familiar to me. I'm coming in late to the game, and I'm learning on the job. So it's I had 4 amateur fights. I went to the military and I went to play college football, and then I came back to boxing, and I had 4 amateur fights, and I turned pro. So I don't have a extensive amateur career. Everything that I do has been like learning on the job. So all these fights, every fight that I'm in is like a lesson to me. And if it's not one thing, it's another. And it's and the thing about me is I'll accept any challenge. I fight when they say, "Hey, will you fight this guy?" My answer is always yes. And it's up to me to come up with a good and solid game plan. It's just that the game plan that we came up with, it wasn't the one for me. So I mean, things happen, but I had to pull myself together and try again. That's how you correct the mistakes. You got to keep going. I could have sat there and lied in that and laid down and say, this is too tough. But I pulled myself together and got back in the mix.
Yeah, you absolutely did. And after losing that fight, I mean, a lot of people, I feel, began to write you off. I mean, people forget you have only lost to undefeated fighters. You've only lost to world-level fighters. But would you agree, though, Gerald, going into this fight just here against Robert Helenius, it was probably a must-win fight for you or not?
It definitely was. I didn't. The Jarrell Miller fell in the steroid test. It didn't sit well with me because I knew that he failed drug tests before, and I had suspicions about him, and it was like, and now that it's come to pass, it really doesn't sit well with me. So from now on, I asked that they put the drug testing into my contract, and right after the fight, I was happy to have him come and draw my blood and take my urine sample and do the same with my opponent, just to have that peace of mind. I don't mind losing a fight, fair and square, but I don't when it's drugs involved, performance enhancing drugs involved. It's like it takes the character out of the sport, and I try to be a gentleman and carry myself as a champion and walk proud, and that just taints the sport, and I have a bad place for it.
Yeah, for sure. And talking of the fight, it took place on Saturday night in Minnesota. The stoppage came for you in round 8 of a scheduled 10-round fight. Obviously, 2 judges had Helenius up by 1 point. One judge, I should say, had you up by 1 point at the time of the stoppage. Talk us through the fight if you can, Big G. They didn't show it over here.
Yeah, it was my I came out. I thought that I watched the fight again, and it was my game plan to do as I did. Just to come out and just work the body, stab him to the body, because he was very long and awkward, and he knew how to keep his head back out of trouble. So, I just targeted the body. I didn't even worry about anything else, but just jabbing him to the body, right hands to the body, and setting up shots to the body. And I knew that if I continued to work that it would bring his, he'd push his body back and bring the head forward into position where I could strike it. And I kind of gave him, and I told myself after the 5th round, I'm gonna give him. I'm gonna slow myself down, slow my pace down a little bit, and just gather myself, and then 8, 9, and 10, I said I'm gonna go after him, and I ended up getting him an 8.
Yeah, and like I say, that's a fantastic win. Helenius is one of those guys I feel that he's probably underrated. He probably doesn't get the credit he deserves because he's a tough guy. And like I say, he took Dillian Whyte the distance, so you've bettered Dillian Whyte's win over him by getting him out of there. Obviously, it's very fresh, but have you got any idea what's next for you, Gerald, in terms of when your next fight will perhaps be?
No, I'm not quite certain, but I'm just happy with this win. I'm happy to get the bad taste out of my mouth from the fight with Kownacki, and just and to move forward, because I was having to train and just it's a bad place. Actually, Anthony Joshua said something that really stuck with me. He said, "Never let winning go to your head, and never let losing go to your heart." But in this sport, it's like you're only as good as your last fight. And you have to, and you really gotta really show some character. It's one thing to have everything. You've already made it. You already became world champion and do all of that. And it's just like, but to pull yourself together and pick yourself back up, it's like that's the real fight. Everybody's trying to get close to you and cheer you up, but there's only one thing that's gonna fix that your problem, and that's to get back in the ring and to handle your business. And to get that win. When the referee lifted my hands up and they called my name after the fight, and just I didn't even feel it right when I knocked him out. When he laid on the ground, I felt it more so when they announced my name as the winner. It just lifted that weight off of me, and now it's going to allow me to go back to the gym and just really go to work in peace now, and I'm happy about that.
I'm pleased to hear you say that. Talking of Kownacki, Gerald, if he were to fight Deontay Wilder, which a lot of people believe that fight will happen at some point in the near future, does Kownacki give him trouble? Can he dethrone Wilder?
You know what? I wasn't expecting a fight. In my heart of hearts, I wasn't expecting to fight Kownacki like that. I was like, how come we're not gonna box him? Box him and let him get tired a little bit, and then work the inside. Why? It was just like it wasn't. I was following instructions, and I just that wasn't my fight. And I do think that Wilder is a master at this. He knows how to keep his distance, and he knows how to keep his space. And and I think it'll be hard for Kownacki to get to him. You know what I mean? I think he'll it's summertime here in LA, and all the beautiful people are coming out, and they're wearing their summer clothing, and it's a beautiful day here in sunny California. But anyway, yeah, I think that he's very good at that, man. He's very good at keeping his distance, and he throws the fire. He throws, like that shot that I threw at the end, he'll throw them all throughout the fight. You know what I mean? That's the difference between him and a lot of people. Like, you know, I'm patient with mine. I kind of sit on my guy like Wilder, man. He knows what he has and he possesses and he lets it go, and it's like, and more power to him. You know what I mean? But that's what makes him dangerous. And Kownacki is a very hittable guy. It's not like he's like moving his head out of the way. He's just there to brawl. Now, are you gonna really run up on Deontay Wilder like that with the knockout power he possesses? I don't know if that's the smart thing to do. But I mean, I give Kownacki all the credit in the world. He did it to me. I mean, when AJ lost to Andy Ruiz, I was like, I can't. You know, people were like, I can't believe it. I was like, you know, I said it at first too, but then I said, you know what? Yes, I can. I said that happened to me. Yeah. That happened to me, man. I lost to the shorter, chubby guy that doesn't look like he's in shape, but he's a natural-born fighter, man, and you got to give those guys credit. Yeah,
credit to them. Thank you for answering that and giving me an update on the weather conditions and people's attire right now as well. Gerald, there's a big fight over here this weekend that may pique your interest. Obviously, Dillian Whyte against Oscar Rivas. Who do you believe that wins that one? A lot of guys over here are thinking that Dillian Whyte wins this easy because they don't really know Rivas, but it's a tough fight.
Yeah, I was supposed to fight Rivas actually, and you know, I know I know he likes to bang, right? He likes to bang, but I think that Dillian Whyte is the better boxer. I think he's the better boxer, and I think he has more tools, and he has the skill set, and he knows how to perform under the fire. You know what I mean? And I'll choose Dillian Whyte for this fight, but I mean Dillian Whyte was able to withstand Derek Chisor's, you know, onslaught and protect himself pretty well and let him kind of wear down, and then he did what he needed to do when the time was right. So I kind of see the same type of thing happening here, and I don't know. I think it's going to make it for a good fight.
Yeah, we all certainly hope so, especially as it's pay-per-view over here.
But I never. You know, like I can't put anything past anybody anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like everybody has their skill set. Everybody has their set of you know, skills that they use and that they fight with. Deontay Wilder is not a guy that's gonna jab you all night long and do this and that. No, he kind of keeps his hand out there, kind of paws you, kind of keeps you at distance, and he fires away. You know, he'll hit you with a hook or like some other little shots here and there, but he's not like an old school type of fighter where he's just like working the jab up and down, you know, like he's not doing that. And it's like you gotta say, and everybody's like he doesn't have the skill set or whatever. I was like, man, he knows how to use his skill set. He's not trying to be anybody else but himself, and that's what people lack, and that's what people don't do. And I was like, I got to be myself. You know what I mean? I know I have to be myself. I can't be anybody else. Don't try to make me like all your other fighters. I need to be me. I need to be Gerald. I need to do what works for me and what I feel comfortable with. Because when the bell rings, everybody gets out. I'm in there by myself, and I got to figure this guy out.
Yeah, exactly. And my final question for you, Gerald. Pacquiao Thurman, a brilliant fight. I really cannot wait to see it. Also this Saturday. Talk to me about that one.
I will be there. I will be there live and live and direct right there at the MGM, right?
Yes.
I will be there, and then yeah, I'm just looking forward to that. You know, we got Pacquiao that you can never say no to, but I never saw the fight with Jeff Horn, but I heard so many people talk bad about that fight. It just makes me question, like, can you really stand up to a guy like Keith Thurman? Because I love Keith Thurman and the style. He knows how to pick his shots. He knows how to move. He knows how to defend well. But Manny Pacquiao, he's his own monster. You know what I mean? And he's gonna be able to have enough juice to get Thurman out of there and do his thing.
We shall see. And finally, Gerald, just before I let you go, any closing words at all just for our listeners?
I'm just happy. I'm just happy to be back in position. The guy that I fought was ranked number 4 in the world. I think it bumped me up to number 15 in the world and number 5 in the U.S. And it just put me back in a better position, mentally. And I'm just ready to. I'm not rushing anything. I'm going to take my time and just look forward to just going back to the gym and working on my craft. I was a little rusty. I was all in between coaches, in between styles, and kind of like I was like all over the place. It was in there, but I did what I needed to do to get through and to learn the lesson. And now I'm excited to get back in there. Like I said, I'll fight anybody. I just need the time to prepare, and I'm ready to go.
We cannot wait to see your next outing, Gerald. We truly can't. It is always a pleasure catching up with you. You know that, my friend. Congrats once again on the win, and we'll no doubt speak soon.
Thank you, sir. And please let them know that that right hand that I let go at the end, I'm gonna let that right hand go a whole lot more. I'm gonna focus on that, and that is a weapon that I have, and that I was more of a person that uses the jab more than anything. Like the jab was my favorite weapon, but now I have to tap into that right hand and see what I can do.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 196 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. I've done the entire show on my own. It has dragged quite a bit. I really do apologise if I've been boring. It's hard to talk to yourself for over an hour and continue sounding interesting, because believe me, I do hate the sound of my own voice. So if you have stuck with me, you are fantastic. I'd like to thank our 2 guests on this week's podcast, the undefeated WBO European Super-Featherweight champion Archie Sharp and the former heavyweight world title challenger Gerald Washington. Remember, best of luck to everybody with the t-shirt competition that we did at the start of the show. Best of luck to everyone with the predictions for this weekend. Also, the league currently stands at myself in the lead with 9 points. Ayaz is second with 7 points, and you, the listeners, have 6. There has been one piece of news developed while we've been recording the show, and it's great news, really. Artur Beterbiev has signed a contract to unify his IBF light heavyweight world title against the WBC title holder Alexander Gvozdyk. Obviously, both men are undefeated, and this fight will be unmissable. I think it's set for October 18th in the USA, but stay tuned for that, because official details haven't yet been released. That's just really what Beterbiev is saying, but hopefully the fight does happen. But that is about everything from me. Remember to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Thank you all for listening to this week's podcast, and I shall be back next week, probably on my own again. We'll see. I don't think Ayaz will be back by then. But like I say, thank you all for listening, and take good care.